Circular financing is a term thrown around in articles for and against AI, because intuitively it seems like a simple concept. We've all seen Bloomberg's graph with the arrows going back and forth, and thought that money is just being recycled between companies while their valuations skyrocketed. That's a scam, right? But for all of the use of the term, the actual mechanics of so-called circular financing are often not explained. Why do companies do it? And if it's so blatantly wrong, how are they getting away with it? So we're going to answer those questions. Now, at its core, this video is about accounting, but stick with us, because by the end of this video, you'll understand the most widely discussed, but little understood, financial instrument of the moment. The future war between humans and AI might have already started, and it's causing big tech companies to rethink everything. In our new magazine, Too Long, we explain how blocking new data centers might finally burst the AI bubble. That's just one of the articles in our longest issue ever. Subscribe to get your copy by clicking the link in the description. Circular financing is not a single precise accounting term. It's a qualitative description used by the media to explain how money moves between different companies. In fact, before AI came along, people didn't really talk about circular financing as a defined phenomenon. There's a reason for that. As per the FT's Lex column, these transactions are not actually circular, which would suggest that no value is actually created, but back to back. Equity investments aren't necessarily funneled directly back into buying chips, and even when they do result in a chip sale, nothing is given free. Nvidia gets the revenue and still has a stake in the company. So AI companies aren't swapping money back and forth on paper to inflate their valuations. That's called round tripping, and it's illegal. Enron did it in the 90s, and it led to a swathe of criminal convictions. We might refer to what AI companies do by the existing term for these sorts of deals, vendor financing, which describes a number of different ways that a company might finance their own customers. On the simpler end of vendor financing, we have hire purchase agreements, where I sell you a car, let's say, and you pay me back in installments. Technically, I've given you the car along with a loan to buy it with. But it can also get a little bit more complicated and interesting. Instead of a company and an individual, imagine two companies that want to make a deal. In this case, imagine a big pharmaceutical company and a small research lab. Big Pharma might take an equity stake in the small lab. They have skin in the game now, and will reap the rewards of that firm's profits and any increase in its valuation. In exchange, the lab promises to go to the big pharmaceutical company when they have a new drug to manufacture, and so Big Pharma gets more business. The fate of these two companies are now linked, which can be mutually beneficial. Money is made available to the smaller company to develop new technologies, and the bigger company gets exclusive access to a new consumer base when it arrives, plus a return on their investment. This is basically what's happening with AI too. Hyperscalers like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon are investing in companies whose business accounts for most of their AI revenue streams. Detailed financial information is kept under wraps for the most part, because the companies they invest in, like OpenAI and Anthropic, are private. But thanks to leaks and investigative work from journalists like Ed Zitron, we have an idea of the scale of this vendor financing. Here's one example. In April this year, Microsoft announced that in the quarter just gone, their AI annual revenue run rate, in other words, an annualized extrapolation of their monthly income, was $37 billion, up 123% year on year. So if we divide that number by 2.23, we can say that last year's annual revenue run rate was $16.59 billion, or $4.14 billion per quarter. That's our best guess as to how much Microsoft was being paid by its AI clients for their cloud computing every month. More documents seen by Ed Zitron show that OpenAI spent $2.947 billion running its models through Microsoft servers that quarter, which means that 71% of Microsoft's total AI revenue came from OpenAI. And then in the other direction, Microsoft's invested more than $13 billion into OpenAI. So in short, they're bankrolling their biggest AI client. This works if you imagine OpenAI one day becoming a profitable company. Every time you use ChatGPT, Microsoft would be getting paid twice. They get a share of OpenAI's profit as part of their investment deal, and they get paid to host your request on their servers. The advantages are obvious. Vendor financing isn't limited to Microsoft and OpenAI. The model is being copied by Amazon and Google, who have invested billions into Anthropic, a company that then agreed to use Amazon's cloud computing for its training and Google's chips. Nvidia, the chip-making behemoth, also has investments filtering through the entire AI economy in companies that use its chips. In many ways, it's at the center of this vendor financing web. And this makes people nervous because OpenAI, Anthropic, and many other AI companies, which people have thrown their money at, don't make a profit. In fact, leaked financials show that they make huge losses. If these companies don't make money, investors lose confidence, and the bubble bursts, all of these vendors will lose twice over. Their investment fails, and their cloud computing customers disappear. It's a concentration of risk that amplifies the reward for big tech if AI changes the world, and amplifies the pain for big tech if it doesn't. Now, there's one big caveat for all of this, in the form of a big distinction between the current AI bubble and the dot-com bubble, which it's often compared to. With the latter, vendor financing was funded by debt, which is where the risk starts to spill out from one sector and into the wider financial system. If companies are gambling their own money, so be it. If they're gambling with your pension funds and insurers' money, then it's more of a problem. These so-called circular deals are not funded by debt in the same way the infrastructure build-out is. And for more on that, you can check out this video on AI's hidden debt. It's linked in the description. On the other hand, the companies making these deals account for an enormous proportion of the US's GDP growth, so their exposure is rightly a matter of public concern. If at the end of the day, if there's one thing that sticks with you, it should be this. Vendor financing is not the same as round tripping. This isn't a dodgy accounting trick that only exists on paper. These investments are risky, and they're real. And while we know broadly that risk has built up, until companies like OpenAI go public, they're free from a huge amount of scrutiny on their books. Perhaps that will be a wake-up call for investors, but until then, we can only guess. Now, this story about circular financing is constantly updating as more and more outlets are reporting on it, so it might feel like it's hard to keep up with the ever-changing media environment. Right now, there are 29 sources currently reporting on it, with most of the coverage coming from the center. This type of analysis is why Ground News has been our favorite way to stay up to date with the news since 2023. It's no secret by this point how much we're fans of Ground News. They've been long-time supporters of this channel and independent news media at large, and they truly help us to understand the political climate better. For example, without Ground News, we wouldn't be able to easily compare the headlines for this story on circular financing and see that the left is focusing on the nature of Nvidia's deals, while the right is concerned about how this could threaten the AI bubble. Ground News not only gives you an easy way to digest the news, but it also offers a comprehensive breakdown into the ownership, bias distribution, and factuality of each article, allowing you to dive even deeper. If you're worried about how much you can trust what's being said about a specific story, with the click of a button you can filter and sort every story by factuality level, helping you to easily grasp the reliability of each outlet. And with their blind spot feed, you're able to see everything you might not normally stumble across, both local and international, keeping you fully informed even outside your media bubble. Ground News is completely algorithm free too, so you're never forced into a narrative or told what to think. That's why we're partnering with them to offer 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. All you have to do is subscribe through the link in the description, or go to ground.news/TLDR, or scan the QR code on screen. And that way you'll be supporting an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.